Hello, how's everybody doing? I hope everybody's doing fine. Excuse me. Today we're doing the second part of what is it? Um, Here it goes. I mean, I know what it is. I'm just trying to see how we can start this. The conscience. The conscience, which is a really big deal. And it's funny because we've been talking about so many things, especially when I say year, I mean like from here and a year back. And we haven't come to any conclusions about what's happening or what happened or how we did this or how we did this. But it developed into this, and now we have the access program. And this is where I got this information from. Not that I got the information, it was organizing everything that helped me find the fact that the conscious is something. There's something that I didn't speak about yesterday. I mean, I was when I gave my YouTube yesterday, there was something that I didn't add, and it was like let me see, mean conscience. Oh, here goes. What is the actual conscience? Is it a condition? Is it a power, or is it a state? And it's funny, it's something that we have that, I mean, it's not really in the Bible. I mean, it's like conscience. Some things that can't be written. It's something that you have yourself. So I can actually say it's something that we have ourselves. And I think the fact that ex-Jehovah Witnesses, because they leave the Jehovah Witnesses and then they end up with all these people who do have conscience and something that you didn't develop. So that's a big hole. It's a big deal. I don't know if people realize how big of a deal this is. The big deal is that I see it now. I mean, that it's noticeable. Like I said, actual condition, a power, a state, whatever it is, but now I expose it. I mean, I didn't expose it. We exposed it through this through the access program, dividing the which I now have the title for this project, the Ex-Jehovah Witness Experience. Okay, remember ex-jehovahwitnessexperience.com. So we talked about conscience before. I'd never really seen the power. This is my notes that I have. And had until it was doing the data access. I already said that. So why would we say, okay, now I said Jehovah Witnesses do they have a conscience? I couldn't answer the question because I had to think about conscience. I mean, it's really big. I mean, it's some things that we don't realize, like, for instance, all the things that happened to us, like I was saying, when we were Jehovah's Witness and we left. Well, it didn't happen to us until we were ex-Jehovah's Witness and we saw all the things that happened. But how big things are. I mean, like, we're like here, but things are like big. You know what I mean? And so what I was saying is, like, do Jehovah's Witnesses have conscience? And I want to say that they, okay, I did put it down here, so I'm going to go by the notes. Did they lose it? They don't use it? Or have they not developed it? So can you lose a conscience? Now that we know what conscience is and we expose the conscience, can you lose your conscience? Yes, you could lose your conscience. Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess some people don't have consciences. Then, of course, we can't say all Jehovah Witnesses don't have consciences, because I was a Jehovah Witness and I found my conscience, but I didn't know what it was. So I can't. Okay, did they lose it? Did they do they use it? I would say sometimes they use it. Some of them probably lost it. I mean, was it developed? I say if you grew up as a Jehovah's Witness, your conscience was not developed. It has not. It cannot be developed. And then, unless you're living like a double life, and then that's another category. So we can say the thing that hits most to home is that it's not developed. Or I can also say, if I can say it's not developed, that means I can also say that it was hindered or hurt. Okay? Okay, so now let's see, excuse me. Okay, so in the world, let me see. Now, in the world, and I told you the definition for the world when I say world now, it's like taken for granted, the conscience, okay? Every so often you meet people that, and I don't think, it doesn't have, I think Christians or people who, do things the right way. I mean, I don't just have to say Christians, but people who live by certain rules and rights, they do have a conscience. Because, like, when you work with people, a lot of times you're working with people, I mean, as far as religious or not religious, these people have consciences, okay? And we rely on them. Because there was like 2 times, which I didn't realize that people didn't have consciences, a conscience. And there was this one person that I worked with, I always couldn't understand. You always go back, you believe that person, you think they can change, and I really liked this person a lot, but they didn't have a conscience. And the only time I understood it, it was like years later when someone told me that there's people who don't have conscience. But like I said, it's taken for granted. I mean, as Christians in the Christian world or whatever, I'm not going to say just Christian world, but in the world in general, the conscience is taken for granted. And then when you find that someone doesn't go by this certain care for people, care for things like everybody else, and you're like in shock. This person did this, this person did that. And they stand out. They do stand out. And then I want to slip in that so does the Jehovah Witnesses stand out. Okay, but I'm just adding that for now. And then I put down, okay, so I put down something, now I'm getting into Jehovah Witnesses. I put down about the family. If they were in the world, and I told you what I agree with the world as, could you avoid your family? I mean, if someone in your family needed help, it would affect your conscience. If you don't know about it, or if you don't know about it, if you do know about it. But a lot of times we say, oh, I can't let this family, this person has a problem, or that person has a problem. How you deal with the problem, which I never realized. I would just say, yes, I have to do this. Yes, I have to do that. But the thing about it is now I realize that my conscience comes into play. It doesn't come into play all the time. But like I said, as far as Jehovah Witness, which I wrote down, which mine is really bold. I'm trying to make it a little bit nicer. But it says, in the world of Christians, would you avoid the members of your family if they needed help? But you couldn't do that if you have a conscience, okay? But the thing about it is Jehovah Witnesses do that. They do it big time without any problem. And they can live day to day without helping those family members who left the organization. So how does that affect their conscience? Well, because everybody has a conscience, and we know when people have conscience and they don't. And the nice thing about it is it's not everybody does the same thing. The conscience belongs, like I said the last one, the conscience belongs to each individual. So the way you do things is the way you have a conscience, but the way you perform and the way you deal with these problems when your family members need them or something happens to your family member, it's according to your conscience. And I would have to say now, dealing with my brothers and sisters who are Jehovah Witnesses, I would have to say their conscience is gravely hindered in some kind of way. Because you can't do it. You can't, with a conscience, you cannot do certain things. I put it here, and that's the world. They take it for granted, and if you can't avoid, certain things. Some things like for instance, if a person has they worked hard for their I don't really want to say that, so I'm not going to say that. The only thing I'm going to say is, if you find someone in need that you, like your siblings or something, in general, and as far as a normal person, their conscience is going to go into play no matter what. Even the person who needs help, they have a conscience, because sometimes they don't want the person to know. Sometimes they don't want to. All these words. It's because I'm already explained this, but I'm having this thing until I get over these classes. So okay, it's just that when I come up with a word and then I want to say it, and then it stops. But what I'm trying to say is, if you have a family member and they need something, your conscience comes into play. And their conscience comes into play too, because it's like, I don't want to, there it goes right there. That word, okay. I don't want to, because I split meaning, I'm splitting the meaning of things and the words. So I'm separating, I did it before, it's something else. So the other person would say, I don't want to see, whatever that word is, like when you need help, okay, I'm going to put it this way. When you need help, say if you're my brother or you're my sister and I need help, I'm not going to say money because they always use money. Maybe I need help with something and I don't want to come to you, because my conscience is telling me, don't, that word again. It says the simple word, don't blank, because your brother, you need help, but you don't want to blank. I can't, the word is there, but I can't say it. I can't find it. You don't want to, ask them, or you don't want to, because you need help, you know what I mean? And you know that they would help you because they have a conscience, their conscience, you already know their conscience. But they don't know your conscience. Your conscience is like, I don't want to I don't want to, there's that word, I don't want to tell them or anything. So, then you go out to dinner, okay? Just say we go to a restaurant, because like I said, I'm using you as my brother or my sister. So we go out to eat, and you notice something about me, and you go, there's something wrong. I mean, there your conscience comes into play again, okay? And my conscience is into play too, because I don't want to, that word, you know. And so anyway, but there are two people, and they go, there's something wrong. Pierre, what is wrong? And I go, everything's just fine, you know, everything. Don't tell me that nothing's wrong. Now you want to get into the person. You want to break their conscience down, because they don't want to tell you, because they don't want to, that word, you know. And then I can't come up with, but that's what I mean. It's doing very good. I'll tell you about the thing I'm doing later on. So, their conscience. So what I'm trying to say is conscience is just a beautiful thing. It's not something like a law or anything. It's just an interaction, a kind interaction of something, you know? And I think you strengthen it. I mean, everybody has a conscience. Everybody has a conscience. But I believe that God would like strengthen your conscience. Because can you imagine if you know God, the most powerful, and then if you just know him, like I said, even if you just know Jesus, it's going to make your conscience really strong. I mean, that would seem most likely, okay? So, anyway, they use their conscience and they break me down. And you break me down, because I'm using you as an example. And I said, oh, well, I tell you okay. I'll tell you what happened. Well, you know, I left my apartment, and the apartment, and I can't move into my other apartment until 2 weeks after, because they're doing remodeling on the apartment. So then I'll have 2 weeks that I have this problem. And then you would say, oh, I cannot believe that you put me through all of this when you know that you could stay with us. I mean, I cannot believe such and such and such and such. Or you could stay with Switchicum, or you could stay with Witchicum. Why would you worry about that? Well, I just didn't want to, and I can't find that word. Okay? So you see how the conscience is really something beautiful. Okay? And this is all I got. I mean, at first the conscience was all like blended with everything else, but now that we're doing this program, I see it much more clearly. But now the Jehovah Witness part, okay? I know that I cannot ask my sister or any of my Jehovah Witness siblings or family for help. But I remember I called I don't know why, maybe God wanted me to do this to see. And I called my sister because I was like, I just had moved back into town. And I needed just maybe like a week or so. And I did call her. I think God wanted me to do it, because I would never, ever do that. I called her, and she didn't. She was like, well, we could put you in a hotel for a day or something like that. I don't know how. Because I bluntly asked her. The only way I would ask her was God would have to really make me do it. Maybe he did it just so I could see, you know. So her conscience didn't come into play. Why didn't her conscience come into play? Because it's hindered. Now I can see that it's hindered by something. So we went this far. So I'm saying the conscience is hindered as far as the Jehovah Witness is concerned. So I finished this one. It's hard to talk about this because it's so big, and I'm trying to focus on a little part at a time. Usually it's easy to talk about something, but I didn't know that the conscience was like a one thing, you know what I mean? I mean, it entails everything, but it's one thing. It's like for instance, joy, you know. We can talk about joy. We can talk about happiness. We can talk about love. I don't know. It's really complicated too, but at least we know it's there. What's another thing? But a conscience is like emotion. Like we understand emotion, we can write songs about it. But then now there's conscience. So we definitely grew in this. I can actually say that we grew in this station because now we know about conscience, and we have never been able to have a YouTube about talking about conscience. We just mention it come and go because we never had to look at it in a magnifying glass. Okay. I'm sorry because I ate but I did all right. I didn't overeat like I usually do because I love to overeat, but I'm getting out of it. Let me see. So we did that. So like I was saying, it was very hard because like yesterday I wanted to finish it, but it was like wow. It was so much information. Not that it's so much information, it's just that I never thought I could speak about conscience because I didn't. It's just like a concept, but now it's not a concept anymore. It's something really great. And like the story I told you, you can see how beautiful the conscience is. And you can see how dark. I'm so sorry. But now I see how dark the Jehovah Witness conscience is. And you know, now I can see when I talk to my sister, when they call me, I don't think they're going to talk to me anymore because of the way I am. Because I'm just I'm straightforward with them. I tell them the truth and they already know that. It's so hard for me to act. So when I would talk to them in the past, I can see the darkness in their conscience. Now I can see it. I didn't see it before. Now notice it, but whatever you do, I'm telling you, do not talk about the conscience. I mean, don't, if you have any Jehovah Witness family or something, I'm not going to, now that I found this out, I'm not going to tell my sister, do you have what did your conscience, I mean, what about your conscience? What do you think about your conscience? I mean, like that. Like, what do you can say, what do your conscience say? But I'm not going to tell her, you know, what does your conscience think when you do that? And it will affect them. So don't do it. I'm serious. Because I find out information that's really, really deep. And there's things that you could say, words can hurt people. They said words cannot hurt people, but words can hurt people. If you know how to talk, and if you know the deepness in things, then it can hurt. It really can. I told you my papers, because I could explain things without using like big words. And when my teacher would read my papers, she would get dizzy. Because you can. But I'm very careful. I don't do things to harm people and stuff like that. Thank God. Thanks to God. I'm sorry. Thank you. So anyway, but I'm just telling you this. Now that you know about the conscience, leave it alone. Let them find another way because it takes a long time. Look, when we left the Jehovah Witness organization, now we can see our conscience was like it was like on the street. I mean, it was like, what do I do? Where am I going to go? What am I going to believe? So like I'm saying, get yours strong, but it help you be able to talk to them better now. You know what I mean? Because I can see like right now their conscience. I mean, I'm going back over everything, and now I can see the darkness in their conscience. But I still, if I talk to them, because of the information I know, I'm not going to go and say, what about your conscience? What does your conscience say about this? Okay? So I'm not going to do that because I know that that would be too much. You know what I mean? So I would just use the fact that I know information, and I would do really little things to see if I could be in a different position. Like now, when I talk to her, I would use what I've learned so far. It would be natural. What I'm trying to say is I wouldn't be using anything. They would just see me differently. I would talk differently. I would speak differently. But I wouldn't use anything. I would let them see the difference. So that's the best thing to do. If you're talking to your family, if you still communicate with your family, learn about it. Learn about your conscience. Now you know that you have a conscience, and you know that. The thing about it is, the ex-Jehovah Witness can see their conscience if they want now, because they've been in a place where their conscience was like sick. It was like laying on the street, and they had to develop their conscience. Like they said in the thing I read yesterday, the conscience can be uneducated, but yet people take their conscience for granted. But the Jehovah Witnesses, now I can see, the ex-Jehovah Witnesses can't take it for granted. But you see, I understand now why a lot of people went crazy when they leave the Jehovah Witness. Look at Michael Jackson went crazy. Latoya went bonkers. I'm just saying famous people that everybody knows. But usually you go like wacko, okay? And now we got that down. So this has really turned out to be good. So now I'm going on, and thanks for holding on with me, because it's just one of the hardest YouTubes I had. A lot of people don't realize. They probably say, oh, he's just talking about the conscience, but you'll see. So what happened to it? So here I go. Now I'm talking about Jehovah's Witnesses. So what happened to their conscience? Okay, I'm going to use the table that we use, like the paranoia table. Okay. When you take a word and you say luck, and then you say, it's just harming people. They're harming people when they teach them whatever you do, don't have to do anything with luck. And we're talking about Lucky Charms cereal. What they have to do, that means that they can't use their conscience to say, is this bad or is this good? They can't use it. Even if God is saying it's good, don't even worry about it. I have this one thing. Okay, I'm going to keep this right now. But now I can understand this thing that I've been going through at one of my jobs. Because this guy, he says some really cruel things, like the devil and all this other stuff. And he's playing. But my conscience, now I can see my conscience, but I think it's a little bit deeper, because I do associate, I'm very close. I don't want to sound like I'm some kind of angel or anything, but I really do have a very good relationship with God. But what I'm trying to say, and a lot of people do too, I always say that. When I say I do, I always know that people also do. But when he says things like that, I understand my feeling. It's just joking. It's just joking. You know what I mean? Now I'll even be stronger with that. But that's what I'm saying. Like a Jehovah's Witness would pass out with some of the things that he says, because he's joking. Okay? But with our conscience, we can kind of like, well, this guy's joking, this guy not. Should I listen to this or should I not listen to this? But look, it's like Lucky Charms. I'm talking about the cereal now. And this is one of the ways, but you got to remember, it's not just one of these. There's hundreds of these which affect the conscience, because the conscience doesn't get a chance to work. It's like, no. And that comes from the society, which affects their conscience because they can't use their conscience. So that's one thing we got to write down. They don't use their conscience. they don't use their conscience. And I put it here. Didn't we talk about that they don't use their conscience? Let me see. They lost, they have not, yeah, they haven't developed their conscience. Or it's been a fact, they don't use it. Okay, now, Matt, it's like, okay, luck. Like I said, Lucky Charms. And then, because we've been talking about luck, and I did the luck table, I just noticed how many times luck was what was used. And because I'm an ex-Jehovah Witness, not just an ex-Jehovah Witness, but because I trained my conscience, now I can say conscience, and developed my conscience, I know that it's all right. But the Jehovah Witnesses don't have it developed. It just says no. I even watched this, I don't know why, I wanted to watch this movie. And, okay, now we're going to go on magic. So I wanted to, first of all, let me just finish with luck. Luck has been used so many times in so many nice ways that I had to like, oh, this is good. Oh, yeah, that's good. And I see how beautiful the conscience is now going on to magic. I could keep saying magic or luck too, but now it's going on to magic. I don't know why, but I wanted to see Cinderella because when I was a kid, a lot of movies that I seen as a kid, I like to watch every so often now when I get older because it reminds me. And one of the movies that we used to always see was Cinderella. And I said, I want to see it. And I got on YouTube and I got the movie. It was expensive. I mean, it was $19. I mean, like the movie theater, which I don't go to the movies anymore. I guess the movie tickets are like maybe $9. Or maybe it's like $20 now. I don't know. But to put it on YouTube. But I bought it. But anyway, it was $19. They say surround sound or some kind of sound. I don't know. But anyway, I really wanted to see it. And they used magic so many times. And my conscience was like not affected. But there could be some time when somebody says magic and I will go, wait, you know what I mean? They might say something like black magic or some kind of voodoo or something. Then I would go like, wait, okay? So that's the conscience, actually, so I can see another thing. The conscience protects you. Okay, so it just protects you, okay? So I did that thing about magic. But when they say magic, they cut everything out. Don't use it. Don't use your conscience. Just say no. Don't even listen to anything. And doing songs, I've been doing a lot of songs. I do a lot of songs. And it's like some of the songs I sang that I couldn't sing as a Jehovah Witness. And it has nothing to do. I mean, it was like, why did you tell me I couldn't sing the song? I mean, like, let it be. I mean, I couldn't understand why they told me not to say this song. Excuse me. Aquarius. I mean, why would they say don't use this thing? I mean, and not just that, but there's impossible for them to, I don't know. I'm going to keep it as that. I don't know how in the world they can say certain things, but we already know it's a false society that teaches lies. Definitely. I'm sorry. So 2 small things, but you have to keep, okay, so I'm just saying these are 2 instances that hinder the conscience or where your conscience doesn't get a chance to work because they're doing it for you. But can you imagine how many times, like I said, how many times the conscience is being affected so you don't get a chance to see, so you don't get a chance to use it? So just remember one thing. We just found out about conscience, that it can be separated like an emotion, like our emotions, our feelings, and now we have conscience, okay? But can you imagine? We never knew that. We just took it for granted. We didn't even know that a conscience can be set aside alongside um, emotions and feelings. That's something else. Okay. So now I think that's about it. Let me see if I have anything else. Oh, what is needed to develop our conscience? So, as ex-Jehovah Witnesses, how, now we didn't know it, now we know, but what helped us to develop our conscience? Well, one thing I can say is friends helped out, because we meet people and they help us, and then we can say that person helped us. I cannot believe it, and it feeds our conscience. You know what I mean? It just feeds our conscience. Okay, because some people did some nice things to me, and then I was able to do something, and then when I did something nice to somebody else, it actually happened, and I could say, oh, but I really didn't do anything because somebody did that to me. So that's like, that helped. So we help each other's conscience. So one thing we could do, I could say, one thing we could do is friends. I was going to say through prayer, but the thing about it is, which I know, and ex-Jehovah Witnesses should know, is that God gets in touch with you. I mean, if he sees the problems that we went through, and if here's another word, it's such a simple word, but I can't get it. Okay, and if because I'm doing this, I have to explain to people, because I know there's some new people. I'm doing this thing with linguistics where I'm learning like the connection to languages. So I'm separating meaning from words. So that's why I'm having problems. So anyway, now I got to figure out where I was before I stopped this. Okay, so prayer. Okay, God has to get in touch with us some kind of way. You know what I mean? I mean, you would think that it's up to you, but because we've been in a bad situation to where we didn't have anything, and I'm sure he sees our conscience laying on the street, and he picks it up maybe, and he goes, well, I want to give you this back because this will help you out a lot, and I want to develop it. So that's another way. And then once he gets in contact with that, I think that we can use prayer. You know, the more we pray about things, that's the strengthening fact. And you know, you don't have to say 3 all the time, but those are 2 things that I think that help us, or help me. Oh, yes. I can say the ex-Jehovah Witness YouTube too. Now I'm going to put in the conscience. I remember when my conscience was messed up, because think about it, okay? If I had a very good conscience, okay, and it was very strong, it would have been easy for me to look at the ex-Jehovah Witnesses, because I would say, hey, look it, I'm in that position too. I can't say anything wrong about them. So, you know, I want to watch your YouTube. So that shows a strong conscience. But I didn't have a strong conscience. I didn't do that. I had a weak conscience. So the thing that came to my mind was when the Jehovah Witness say, don't listen to anything that has to do with ex-Jehovah Witnesses. Nothing at all. I mean, that's the voice I listened to, and it was like, so that's not a conscience. What does it do? They're stopping my conscience. They're stopping my conscience from growing. And then, once I got into the Jehovah Witness tapes, and I started listening to them, I just couldn't stop. And it was like, wow, this is really great. And then I was building up my conscience. So now we know you can build up your conscience. Because I was seeing other experiences, and then I was saying, well, I should do that, or I can do that, or I can see how they were affected, or that were affected. But I can't. I mean, everything I say now is still the first time that I'm talking about this conscience thing. So that's the only 2 things I know. Plus the YouTubes, like I said, we help each other. Okay, Freeman to make you. Okay, and another thing too, It's another thing that you need for your conscience, and that is you have to be free. You have to be free to do what you want to do, to build your conscience. Because remember, every conscience is different. It's just like you. Everybody has a different conscience. So now you can see why people enslaved, like the first century people, if you were poor or anything, because the thing about it is that they took you over and you couldn't do anything that you wanted, that you even think that you could do. You didn't even know what to do, you know. But they knew about the conscience, I think. So that's probably why they you know, did things certain way to keep your conscience hidden away from you, because you could say, hey, they're doing something wrong. I mean, like, I'm just as good as they are. I mean, not that I want what they want, but the thing about it is I'm a person. And that's a conscience also. The conscience can speak, is very powerful. Now I can see it's a figuring tool. It's just a tool. But the major important thing I want to say about conscience is you have to be free. And the Jehovah Witnesses are not free to think the way they want to do. So they're not free to build their conscience. Okay, and I just said so you can see for yourself. So what I'm trying to say, the conscience lets you see things for yourself. Like with luck, you go, wait, is this good? Is this bad? Is this good? Is this bad? Do I want to do this or I do? But it's that way too. But the thing about it is we extended it now. I mean, we know that it's more than that. It's what we're doing now. You listen to me, I'm listening to you. I take in strength. Like I say, encouragement, and I use it builds my conscience to make it stronger. So that's the first. I can actually say that's the first discussion on the conscience. I hope you enjoyed it. So, do Jehovah Witnesses have conscience? Yes, they have conscience, but I would say, for the most part, they have conscience, but their conscience is not used. I can actually say that. But remember what I told you about how you speak to them just because you know the information. You don't go, you want to say, oh, I'm going to see what happens. That's totally wrong. You don't say, I'm going to see what happens if I do this. I mean, if you want to see somebody cry, or they're not going to cry, or they're going to wait until you leave and you won't. I mean, it's just not a nice thing to do. Okay, thank you very much. I hope everybody's doing fine. And the next conversation. But I have to get back into the access program, finish the tables, look at how far we went. Thank you. Bye-bye.